Hello and welcome to Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. This is a brand new channel, pretty much only a couple months here. So if it's your first time here, please hit like and subscribe if the algorithm brought you here. I am very excited about my guest tonight. This is the most requested guest I've had so far. And even people that are not online have told me, let me just bring you on. Please welcome Gothix.
Hello,
Hello,
hello.
lady.
Thanks for
Hello.
having me, and I love your intro, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, my husband is very talented. He has a music brain, which I don't have,
Nice.
so I really admire that. But yeah, somebody at my church told me, someone offline was like, "Have you heard of Gothix? You should really have her on your show." I'm like,
Oh, that's amazing.
"Amazing!" So I'm very happy to have you here. And I've heard a lot about your story, but I'm hoping you won't mind sharing it with us and seeing where you and I overlap and maybe where some of our differences are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. I'm an open book.
So the first time I heard of you, people were saying you have to talk to this girl. She also left the social justice left. Is that an accurate description for you of what you think you've done, your transformation?
Yeah, yes and no. I was sort of a Democrat at birth, which is like common with most black people in America. Um, but I didn't necessarily subscribe to every single social justice warrior thing. There were some issues, particularly things pertaining to some like I guess I fell into that camp of victimizing gay people based on what the left sort of does now. And I
Mhm.
believe that gay people were just at the mercy of Christians, and I thought Christians were evil bigots. And my
Mhm.
brain was very warped. I was never woke in the sense that I thought that black people were victims, but I did also vote for Obama because he was black, and then I had some severe Trump derangement syndrome. So it's like I had a little mixture going on there. I wasn't super woke, but I had my moments.
You had Okay, so I'm already checking off the things we have in common. Voted for Obama because he was black. Trump derangement syndrome. Yes. Thought Christians were evil bigots. Yes. So what what was the people always want to ask me, what was your red pill moment? And in my
Mm.
case, I can definitely point to a couple things that started the fracture in the foundation of my belief system. But it wasn't an overnight thing. It was a long process of first my foundational beliefs kind of cracked open, and then I became open slowly to listening to other viewpoints and trying to figure out what the truth was. For
Mm.
you, is there something that you can point to that made you start to question some of your assumptions about the world?
Oh yeah, I think mine was a slow progress as well. Um, I had my run-in with cancel culture when I was a streamer on Twitch. I said something on social media that the woke, I guess they call it Black Twitter, Black Twitter
Oh
didn't
yeah.
like. And I pretty much just said, like, just stop throwing the race card around. Not everybody's racist about everything. Some people have actual legitimate reasons to think the way that they do. And when I got canceled by that, it stuck out to me because it was like, okay, these are everyone that was coming at me was on the left. The majority of people that were coming at me were black. And then it was, what struck me as odd was a lot of these people a few months ago supported me. They were part of my channel. They were always talking about me and trying to, amplify black voices until it came to me disagreeing with the agenda. And then they turned on me. And I kind of carried that until 2020 when BLM started with COVID and all that stuff. And I started seeing again sort of the same symptoms of people just acting very irrationally with the George Floyd situation. And I found myself just questioning, what does stealing a TV have to do with racial injustice? Like, what does mob rule, how does that help racial injustice? And I couldn't get an answer. And that's when I started to put things together like, oh, okay, this is a very warped line of thinking that is people are just used to. And I guess I never noticed it until I had to deal with it myself.
Mhm. So when you were streaming on Twitch, what kinds of stuff were you doing there? I mostly know that as a video game
Mm.
platform. Is that what you were doing?
Yeah, I was mostly doing video game content. I also did sketch comedy, so I would dress up in
Oh, fun.
costumes
Oh, nice.
and I would do like just live skits. I'd have my callers, like my viewers, they would call in and interact with me on screen. So I did a lot of stuff, and it's so interesting that I recently became a Christian, and part of my whole shtick when I was on Twitch is my sort of standard uniform that I would wear would be demon horns, and I had like this really like goth look about me, and now I'm looking back, I'm like, I mean, I think I looked cool, but I just thought that that was kind of ironic of where I am now.
Like how you started. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you started questioning things, you had your public mobbing or cancellation, and then you said the events of 2020 started to wake you up. That's true for a lot of people I know. That was my period of starting to wake up was the 2016 election, the campaign season. But then I know people who it didn't start for them until 2020. I think there was another acceleration point then where the ideology, the more popular it gets, like when it becomes dominant culturally, then I think people tend to either go further into it or they start to wake up. And
Mm.
so that was happening for you at that time. What was the reaction of not people online, but friends and family, like people you knew? Did you
Mm.
lose friends?
Oh yeah, my fiance and I, we kind of went through the same thing, and we lost, I want to say, 90% of our friends.
Wow.
Uh, they just stopped talking with us, and out of nowhere, we just became, people that wanted to uphold white supremacy, people
Ugh.
that wanted to vote for a racist. And I'm like, we have gone on vacation together. We've spent time together. You've come over my house. Like, what are you talking about?
Like, you know me.
Yeah, and it was so bizarre. It was like this uh, uh, mass psychosis that I was watching, and I never thought that people could legitimately be brainwashed or hypnotized, but that's what I can compare it to. It's like, who is this person?
Yeah. And so sometimes people ask me about all the loss, when you're going through that fire. Um, what's the motivation to keep going? I want people to hear your answer to this because I'm sure you hear from people. I hear from people all the time who are like, "Oh, I'm afraid of losing my job, losing my social circle. I like what you're saying, but I'm too afraid to hit like even, or share it." And they have legitimate fears. Like, I don't downplay those fears at all. You will lose things, but what's the reason to keep going despite the loss?
Well, there's a few things. I think the most the reason that I think is the most urgent is right now we have people that are speaking up like me, like you, and I think that there is strength in numbers in the same way that the woke has so many loud people pushing their agenda. I think we can do the same by pushing the truth. And if I wasn't making videos or you weren't doing this, then what would happen? We would just cease to exist. Like, I don't know. And then I guess the other reason is because even though all these friends stopped associating with me, I lost sponsorships.
Wow.
It affected my career as a live streamer. Despite all of that happening, I still care about these people, and I have a sense of a love that when I think of love, I think of telling the truth, and I think of telling people things that are good for them, just like a parent would. As a kid, you're not going to always like what your parent has to say, but you're going to listen to them because they know what's best for you. They're looking out for you. And I just see all of my, ex-friends just fall under this brainwashing spell, and I see them becoming very angry and just hostile and militant with trying to enforce their ideologies. And I don't, that's not the people that I know. And I think that they unfortunately just felt prey to all of this brainwashing. And if I keep hammering the truth, my hope is eventually they'll come around and they'll wake up, and we can, continue on in life.
Hmm. What's some of the things that you've gained?
I think for me, I think I gained a lot of self growth, because when I first started losing friends, I was an emotional wreck. you know, my fiance talks about this all the time. Like, I would literally cry every day, hours a day, because it got to a point where I would get an email from a friend just leaving me this long dissertation about how they don't want to be friends with me anymore because of my views. And then they would go on Twitter and also announce it to other people. It's like
Yes.
just declaring it to the public. I'm no longer associated with these people. And it broke me because I've never experienced something like that. And I had put so much trust in these people. So for me, I think that personal growth is one thing that I have gained from this because I've learned to toughen up. Sometimes I wonder if I've calloused a little bit too much because now people come into my circle and they're like, "Hey, we support you. You're awesome." And I'm like, "Yeah, like stay away," because I've just been, I guess, so conditioned to think that people are gonna pull a rug from underneath me and people don't legitimately want to actually be in my company. Maybe I think that they want something out of me. But that's something I'm working on. But I think overall, it's just helped me be a stronger person. It's helped me persevere more. It's made me more emboldened to speak my mind, and it's put a lot of things in perspective for me in terms of what I thought was valuable really isn't all that valuable. I think our freedom is very valuable, as opposed to me being worried that I'm going to lose a sponsorship or I'm going to lose my friends.
Yes. I, would you say you're a very open person?
I think so. Yeah.
That's probably why you're feeling that you're maybe becoming a little too calloused, and you're not. I don't think it's just when you're an open person. I think sometimes you have to remind yourself to be a little bit more skeptical. I had a stranger message me. You made me think of this. This just happened last month, and I get too many messages across platforms to keep up with. That's not a humble brag. That's actually it gives me anxiety because I can't stay on top of all of them. And when people are sending you their life story and stuff, and I don't even have like I don't know how you would do it with the following that you have. So
I
I can barely do it. And this person had messaged me, "I love you. You're awesome. I love what you're saying." Right? Didn't see it for a week. Then I did see it, and by then they had replied, "Why haven't you answered me? I hate you." It was just like this immediate, like, "I love you, you're awesome. I hate you, you dirtbag." It's like, what? I'm so glad that Father Time gave me that week I needed to see because you
yeah.
could let somebody like that in. I would normally be like, "Oh yeah, you can call me
Yeah.
if you need to."
Oh
Like,
yeah. I have I'm the same way with the anxiety thing, especially like whenever one of my videos gets trending, that's when I'll get just like an influx of people coming in, and it freaks me out because I'm just like, this is a lot of attention. And sometimes even when I'm streaming, I'll have a couple of hundred people in the chat and they'll be like, "Did you missed my chat?" And I'm like, "Dude, look how many people are in here." Um, there's a few times where I'll even get emails from other content creators that want to collab with me, and I'll let them sit in the inbox for a while before I respond, because a lot of the times the people that email me are those that are still a part of like the woke left, but they claim to want to have like a neutral position and want to entertain differing ideas. But
that's
then
interesting.
but here's the thing. But then a week later, I'll go in my comments and I'll see them talking crap about me in my video section. So so what do you mean?
No, no. I think it's good you're getting a little more calloused.
Yeah.
So, you are a recent Christian now. So I am as well, and I don't know how long I'll be saying that. People have asked me, "How long are you going to say new Christian?" I guess I'm like, I guess until I feel like I have a handle on it, which will probably be forever. Like it feels, I'm learning so much about it. I don't feel comfortable just saying Christian. I guess I still put that qualifier on it so people know. But anyway, for me, it's been a couple years. When did you decide that you were a Christian?
This was literally a few months ago that I gave my
Wow.
life over to him. But it was a long process, and I honestly I have to thank 2020 for expediting this process. It just put me in he put me in the right position at the right time to meet the right people that eventually got me more curious to have these conversations about God, because prior to that, if someone tried talking to me about spirituality, I just shut them out. Like, I
Yes.
don't know what you're talking about. It's weird to me. But I think that I was such in a really dark place in terms of like my depression, because I I have to consider I lost a lot of friends because I got canceled, and then immediately after that I start speaking out because of BLM, and I got canceled again, and that's when all of my friends started to leave me because then I voted for Trump. So that it's just like
Uh,
just compounding a bunch of traumatic events and then adding on what's actually happening in society. Look what our government's doing, look what the media is doing, and it's just so much the pressure on my mental well-being that I literally felt this point where I was like, I don't know where to go from here. I don't know what the point of any of this is.
yes.
And my friend Graham, he reached out to me, and he's a filmmaker, and he found me in the midst of this, and he said he wanted to make a documentary on me, to sort of like document my journey as a creator and how I got to this point. And his whole family is Christian. And whenever we would be filming, if we just took a break, we were just sitting there, he would just ask me about Christianity in such a natural way that just it compelled me to want to ask questions, as opposed to what I was used to, where people would just say, "You're gonna go to hell because you look like that," like because I would
Right.
dress really goth before. So it was just something that I was very new to.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Would you say you were talking about your depression and kind of like, what's the point? This is a cliche I've heard before, but now on the other side of it, it makes so much sense to me. And I'm starting to realize a lot of these aphorisms that I used to think were just trite, I'm like, oh, that means something. So one of those is sometimes that you have to get to a really dark place to see the light. And that's what happened to me. And so something like that, that may sound cheesy to some people or whatever, I'm like, no, but I understand what that means now.
Hmm.
Because when you're down in that dark place, there's nothing that is, for me anyway, that was the only place where I would contemplate the meaning of life. Like, do we have a soul? Is all of what why is life worth it? All of those questions. Was it kind of like that for you
Oh
or
yeah. Oh, it
yeah.
definitely was. I mean, I attempted suicide at one point.
Wow.
This was before the COVID thing happened, but again, like prior to COVID, I was still trying to dig myself out of that hole of depression, and at some point I'm like, this isn't working. And in my head, I convinced myself, well, I can just get another therapist. I've been on antidepressants. I was smoking weed all day, every day. So in my head, I'm doing everything that I can without
Mhm.
actually doing everything that I can. And that's when I realized, well, I really don't have enough information or have truthfully given God a shot for me to just outright say he doesn't exist. I don't want to talk about him. And I think like people like Jordan Peterson, for example, always
Mhm.
talks about always wanting to continue searching for knowledge. Don't assume that you know everything. It even says that in the Bible, keep knocking, keep seeking.
Mhm.
And that's just ended up where I was, is I just said I have to actually keep looking into this because I can't continue living like this. I was a wreck.
Yeah. Um, this might be a silly question, but how does God talk to you? Because I know I have a friend who says she hears an audible voice. Now, I've never heard an audible voice, but who am I to question how God speaks to her? With me, God seems to have a sense of humor. Like, you're not paying
Mhm.
attention, dum dum. Like, I'm gonna have to put several signs, like, like whether it's coming to the same verse in the Bible over and over or something, sort of like trying to get my attention.
Mhm.
What is that for anybody who might be skeptical about feeling God's presence? What does that mean to you? Put it that way.
So this is, like I said, I've only been at this for a few months, but I have definitely noticed that I get this sense of, I described it as nagging, but it's not nagging. Because my friend asked me, the one that introduced me to this whole thing, he asked me, uh, you know, what made you curious to start reading the Bible? Because I had told him randomly, I said, I'm still going to read the Bible, even though I hadn't made that commitment yet, just to see what's in it. And he asked me, why are you doing that? And I said, I just felt like this. Hey, you gonna do this? Hey, like I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And then it got to a point where, like I said, I was always smoking weed. And I would smoke weed all the time. And even when I was high, I couldn't stop thinking about God.
Yes.
It was just always on my mind. I'm like, what is happening right now? And it, like, even around Christmas, I started just seeing signs of him everywhere. It was so bizarre. Like, not literally seeing signs, but I, like, for example, I would see like crosses in areas that isn't actually a cross, like not a decoration. Like up this hill, I see that tree, it looks like a cross. I'm just seeing it everywhere.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I'm just like, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something. Like I'm supposed
Right.
to be moving.
Yes, I can completely relate to that. For me, it started with that you said you couldn't stop thinking about it. I became obsessed with figuring out whether I thought that the soul, like with the existence of the soul, like do we have a soul or not? To the point where I remember once I was at the gym at like 7 in the morning and I couldn't even, after working out, I couldn't even get, I'm like in the shower and then I get out and I'm like texting my friend because I had to know right then, do you think we're just a physical body and computer brain or do we have a soul? And then she's like, it's 7 a.m.
Amazing.
But I'm like, it just suddenly became a very important question for me of like, you know, I'm like you. I had cut myself off to it. My pastor talks about it kind of like, um, well, he says, you know, if you think about in the Bible when they're out preaching the good word, this is the first time people have heard the good word or heard about Jesus, and so that's the first time they're being, given this message and can contemplate it and you think about it. But in our culture, we're almost in a post-Christian world where we're like inoculated against it in some ways. Like, oh, I already know what that is. And I've already decided.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that now that I am a Christian, one of the things that makes me the most angry is like the corruption in the church, and I think the bad actors and the people who give it such a bad name that people like myself look to that, or I used to look to that forever and think that's Christianity, right? What were some of the things that you think prevented you from going down that path earlier in your life?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, as you just said, I think the media has played a big role in contorting the way that I look at politics, and it does the same way in terms of Christianity. I would just keep seeing reruns of the likes of Westboro Baptist Church holding the angry signs, and I'm thinking, that's Christianity right there. I also had someone in my family that was an alcoholic, very abusive, and he would go to church and read the Bible. So I'm thinking, this is Christianity. And what I've had to realize, and it's what I also try to convey to other people, is that you're generalizing in the same way that you don't want people to generalize your side of the political aisle, because I don't think everyone that's on the left is a crazy meanie. That's unfortunately the bulk of the interactions that I have, but I also don't like to generalize and assume that that's just how everyone is. I know that there is kindness somewhere in there, and I think that it's always the people that give something a bad name that are always going to get platformed the most, especially in terms of Christianity. The churches, I had no idea the churches were the way that they are until I became a Christian, and it's actually very upsetting to me. I'll see some sermons of them talking about politics, like political candidates during a sermon. I'm like, what? I don't understand what this is. Is this a social justice community, or is this a place of worship? And I also think that a few more things. I think that for me, I wish that I had gotten more context as someone that didn't understand who God was. So, for example, if someone were to say Jesus loves you to a non-believer, what am I supposed to do with that information? I don't know what that means. If someone had told me it's more about the connection, the spiritual connection that you have with God, as opposed to what do you think is true or not in the Bible, that would have made a world of a difference. Because I notice now, especially when I talk more about this, a lot of people will want to debate things in scripture, and that's great to like want to understand, and it's good to be curious and stuff like that. But I have this feeling that a lot of people stop right at the point of wanting to debate what they think is truth, instead of understanding that it is more than just reading a Bible. It's more than just going to church. It's having that connection that I didn't know existed. And this is why I talk about my mental health so openly, because when I gave my life over, my whole demeanor shifted. Like, my sense of depression and anxiety, gone. Like, I cannot explain it. And I was in a really low place. And I think the other thing that I wish, there was another one I was just going to say. It'll come back to me. I'm having a Granny Gothix brain fart right now.
That's okay. It makes me so happy to hear that. And honey, I have the same. People are like, the way I view it is, I don't really go out and I don't try and convert people. I don't think I can anyway. But if I end up talking about God with someone I meet out in the world, it's usually because they ask me, or they're like, something's different about you if it's somebody I've known a long time, or there's that thing. I looked at pictures of myself when I was in the social justice cult compared to now. I mean, I didn't realize it then, but I looked so hollow, and when I think back to that belief system, and it's really it's almost Christianity inverted in a way, because instead of being about joy, truth, love, it was about resentment, misery, outrage, like jealousy, entitlement, like arrogance. And I mean, I don't know if because you said you weren't like fully woke, you were sort of kind of woke on some things, but in my world, I didn't even realize that some of this stuff until after I left, but there was a real push to even prevent people from taking joy in things like holidays. All these people would write these articles, in the social justice world, it's like, 10 reasons not to celebrate the 4th of July. And like, and they would shame you for having fun or getting joy out of life.
Yeah.
Did you see any of that kind of miserly, just, I don't know, darkness?
I mean, I definitely remember a lot of those articles, and I might have subscribed to one of them at some point. I feel like I may have tried to strip someone's joy in one way or another. But I definitely noticed the same thing as far as looking back and seeing how I was before, and I put all of my happiness in things or people instead of God. And when I try to think of the connection to how depressed I was, like, even I'll go on Facebook, they have this thing where you can check your memories on a certain day, and I'll go back years ago, and almost every week I see something about me talking about how depressed I am. And there's always something pertaining to me being in and out of relationships. And it's like, well, I'm putting all of my trust in a thing or a person, and if they get stripped from me, then I'm no longer happy. I don't have any more joy, and that's not sustainable. So I just never realized how bad it was until I was out of that situation. And it's funny that you mentioned the joy thing, because I have a friend that recently, when I made this transition, he texted me. He's like, you seem very cheerful lately. You seem glowy. And it's the same thing that I saw the first day I walked into church, and I see people worshiping, and I'm just looking around. I'm like, why is everyone so happy? Even the greeters at the church. What up? Welcome to church. I'm like, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Like, why are you so happy?
I love that. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so you're talking about how you were putting your importance in things and people, and earlier you said you found out what was valuable. So compared to back then, like what what things, like, what's your list? Like, what do you think life is about? Like, what's of most importance?
Mm. I think, well, now I think the most important thing is, to me, I think is striving for truth and, you know, pleasing God, which I think those go hand in hand. I've noticed that people, when they're on the pursuit of truth, from what I've noticed, I think a lot of people inevitably end up becoming Christians. And that is wild to me because I'm a very analytical person and I like to pay attention to patterns and things like that. And it's just the more I kept reading, the more it ended up leading me to this path. But I would say that for me, the things that I find valuable, like I said, is truth, love, and also that means me being more emboldened to say things, even though I know it could hurt someone's feelings. If it means that I could help someone in the long term, I'm going to say it, I'm going to do it. And just being more content being by myself, or just living my life and not worried about other people leaving me, because I know that I'm not alone anymore. I actually have, someone that's keeping me anchored.
Right. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
that verse about I want to do a series, Gothix. Maybe we could work on it together. I want to do something called the Bible for Dummies. Where it's just me trying to, I just want to, like, remember that verse and then I mangle it. But the one about the lilies of maybe somebody in chat knows, the lilies of the field, they don't toil. It's the verse about like, don't be so caught up in all these daily frustrations. Like,
Yep.
God's got you. Like, you can let
Yep.
those things go. And I remind myself of that a lot because I used to be sort of, I think a lot of people are sort of controlling. Like, I need to control this.
Yeah.
I need to do this thing. I need to take charge of this thing. And sometimes there's a real freedom in saying, I'm just going to trust that this thing, that's what faith is, that this thing that I can't control anyway is going to be okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's another verse too. I forget exactly. I'm not done reading the Bible, but there was like one part where they're talking about like, don't be so anxious because, tomorrow could bring something else or something like that.
Yeah.
And that was another layer of me getting so depressed. It was because I felt like I was taking on all of this burden to make all these videos on everything going on, and I was desperate to wake people up. And in my mind, I wasn't waking up people fast enough, and it was frustrating me. And then, I literally had to have a moment with God to understand this is not all on me, and it's unrealistic for it to be on me. But I convinced myself that it was.
Right. I love that. That's the death of ego. And arrogance of like, I'm going to save Western civilization. It's like,
nope.
Who are you? No.
Not gonna
happen. What do you think? Well, first of all, you mentioned the first time you went to church and looking around and just seeing the joy people had. Have you encountered woke in the church yet? I know you've only...
Not my church. Thankfully, I feel like my church is like a decontamination chamber. When you go on and you just like, you pull that thing and there's no more wokeness around you. I've even met people in church who watch my channel, and that was very awkward too. I'm like, hi. They were surprised to see me there. But yeah, no wokeness as of yet, and I hope it stays that way.
That's great. Yeah, that's the most, that was another really disappointing thing I've encountered. But the church I go to now is excellent. They know what's up. They're fully awake. It's like, yeah, I wasn't searching for God just to find woke at the end of that journey. It's like, I left woke. Why are you? I had some people who were like, when they would find out I was a new Christian, and I was trying a lot of different churches for a while. And so sometimes people would make assumptions about me. Assume I'm social justice, like a lot of social justice people do. They assume that about everyone. They'd say, you want to come to my church? They believe this. I'm like, no, that's not really what I'm looking for. Do you mind if I don't normally do the interviews live. Do you mind if I interrupt this for a second just to put a couple of these super chats on the screen?
Go for it.
Okay, let's see. I don't want to break up the conversation, but I also don't want to get behind. Hello, little ragamuffin. Do you know her?
I think I've seen Ragamuffin in my stream.
Ragamuffin is the William Wallace of the sewing community. She's all about freedom. She's faced her own mobbing before in the sewist world. She says, I'm super excited for this conversation, but I can't stay. You ladies are going to kill it. I'll catch up tomorrow. Being problematic is freedom.
Yes.
Yes. And then I saw Drunk 3PO was here. Hello, sir. He just says super chat.
Hello, Drunk 3PO. I always mess up his name when he comes in my chat. I never watched Star Wars, so for some reason his name confuses me sometimes.
Let's see who else. And then I saw one from Pirate. Pirate is a friendly atheist. He says, love to the new Christians from an atheist. Hello. Thank you, guys. So what would you say is, what's one of the biggest misconceptions about Christianity, in your opinion? Like, what's one of the defeater beliefs about it, or the things that sort of prevent, not the behavior of the con artist and all that, but what's one of the biggest misconceptions about it? Either one that you held or one that you think people you know might hold.
I would say the common misconception for me is maybe the belief that people who are followers of Christ, and I say follower of Christ because I think a lot of people use Christian in very negative ways. So I try to make that separation. But I think that the common misconception is that people who are followers are believers in fairy tales, or they're idiots. I get a lot of comments, especially recently, where people are like, I thought you were smarter than this. Why would you join this Christian cult? And on the contrary, I think believing in God is the beginning of true wisdom, because it also means that you don't know everything about the world. You don't know what's out there. And then also or you could also have this fear that when you die, you're going to be held accountable for whatever you do. And I think that, for me, that would straighten me up, knowing that I'm going to be judged at some point. So I think that, it's just, I think people that seek truth are people that follow God, not people that are idiots.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I've even seen, I wonder if you've seen this on Twitter, sometimes in this whole culture war space that we're in. I've seen some people who call themselves Christians who are woke, and in my opinion, that means they're necessarily putting a different belief system, a different lens first, and the gospel second. Those two things, and I don't think they don't go together. They're the opposite of one another. But I'll see those people attack atheists like James Lindsay, and that disappoints me, because I think someone how can I phrase this? God can use anybody. And if a person is speaking truth, even if they're an atheist and they don't have that belief in a deity, if they're speaking truth, God is truth. And so I'm going to listen to that person, what they're saying that's truthful about, hey, maybe we shouldn't judge and treat people differently on the basis of race. Maybe that's racism, no matter what you call it, or we shouldn't judge and treat people differently on the basis of sex, because that's sexist. I'm going to listen to that truth over the person who puts that label. As you said, that label has a lot of baggage, but uses that label and then behaves in ways that I think are the opposite of what Christ taught.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Have you had interesting, I guess alliances isn't the word, but a lot of times people think, oh, well, now you're a Christian. Like you said, somebody called it a cult. Like, how could you join that kind of cult? Or, I thought you were smarter than that. Do you have people who assume that, like, oh, you're a Christian now, you don't associate with anyone except people who believe what you do?
Yeah, not too much. I have some, close friends that are just a little bit like, you're a Christian now? And they're coming in with their preconceptions about Christianity from whatever they were, raised to believe. And I just try to be patient with them, and I try to show them like, hey, I haven't really changed much as a in regards to like who I am as a person. I think I'm in one sense, yeah, I've changed. I'm not depressed. I don't look at everything through this crazy worldview anymore. But I'm still like the same person. I'm still going to be your friend, and I think that even if I have a friend, which actually I do have a few of them, where they're very anti-Christian because they think that I'm gonna be just like however they think, I still want to be their friends because I don't believe I'm gonna be able to convert them. It's not my job to convert them, but I think that it's beneficial for them to see that we're not all like how you perceived. I can just compare it to when I had my political awakening. For a long time, I thought that Trump supporters were bigots and they were racists and they were evil. And, and then I became one. So it's just for last election, but,
Same. Yeah, just for the last.
Yeah.
I cried the night when he won in 2016. Did you cry?
I didn't cry, but I sent my friend at the time a long email because she voted for him. You voted for a racist. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, and then just 4 short years later, I'm like, what am I doing? Pulling the Trump lever?
Yep.
Oh man. What is it? Okay, so going back to the political awakening for a second. Thanks for entertaining all the questions about God and Christianity.
Yeah.
And thank you guys listening, especially you, Pirate Tomsky, the atheist, for tolerating this. I just don't often get to talk to people who are new Christians about what that process was like. So
I thought of my other thing that slipped my mind earlier, where you asked me what are some things that you wish were done differently. This is an observation that I've made being new to this, is that I'll encounter a lot of people that say they've tried Christianity and they realized it was false or rubbish. And when I try to, challenge them on that or ask them questions on it, they'll say, well, I already grew up in the church. I've already read the Bible. I've already done this and that. And I'm noticing a trend where a lot of people who grew up in the church were brought to church out of, I guess, obligation because their family wanted them to go to church. And so I'm wondering if there is a connection with just young kids, maybe not all of them, but I think a lot of kids probably go to church. They don't understand exactly what it is that they're doing there. And then when they get older, you go through that teenage rebellious phase and you're just like, I want to reject that. I don't know what that is. And then, because that's what I'm seeing. So I don't know, maybe I think it's great to raise kids with Christian morals. And when I say Christian morals, I think that the majority of things that I've done throughout my life technically qualify as Christian morals. I just didn't know what they were. And I just had to read the Bible to confirm, oh, this is already how I respond to this type of situation. But I think that maybe people should be a little bit more careful in terms of getting their kid to go to church without them quite absorbing what it is, because I wonder if that's contributing to a lot of people that don't believe in him anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe, do you think we should do what is it the Amish do, a Rumspringa?
What is
where
that?
It's like, so correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but when they reach adolescence, they send them out into the world to live in the world and see if they truly want to come back and live in the Amish way or not. And so I've just heard stories about, all the debauchery that they get up to, the young adults when they go out into the world, and it's like, let me see what the world has to offer. And then some of them come back and some don't.
Yeah,
It's
I
kind of
think
like,
now that you say that, I think I saw a reality show of that years ago.
oh, really?
Yeah, and a lot of them stayed in the city and then ended up being alcoholics.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that could, yeah, something. I don't know. I'm not a parent yet, so I'll have to tinker around with this, but it's definitely something that I've noticed in terms of people walking away from the faith as they go there really, really young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I were you raised in the church when you were younger?
Mm-mm. My family's not religious. In fact, when I was in high school, I called myself Wiccan. I would do little witchcraft spells and stuff like that. And I think I got into that strictly out of the fact that it was a trend and I was in high school and I wanted to be a part of a clique. So I said, I'm going to be a part of the spooky kids clique.
Hmm.
Yeah.
My pastor talks. He's given this really great sermon. You should talk to him sometime. Maybe he's so interesting. He gave this. It's his sermons are almost like lectures, and he gave this one about how if we think about like what is man, like what separates us and makes us distinct from the animals, and different philosophers have said, it's sort of like man thinks, therefore, I think, therefore I am. um, or man emotes, man has emotions, so have emotions, therefore I am. And he argues in his lecture that no, man worships. And he sort of presents an argument that he thinks, and I'm starting to agree with him, that I think that humans are made to worship. What do you think about that? Because when I look at the woke stuff and everything that's just taken hold and become so culturally dominant in the past couple of years, I see all these elements of worship. There's the videos of the BLM things where you've got people down on their knees and reciting things. That's like liturgy, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Even some of the COVID stuff seems very ritualistic in a way, and they sort of they put these different figures, whether political or what have you, into like Fauci, into these sort of deity positions in a way. Do you think there's any credence to that? Do you think that everyone worships something?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And this is why I think that a common factor that I see with a lot of people that are woke is that they're not morally anchored to something. And then they end up drifting off and literally worshiping something relating to social justice without them even realizing it. Just the fact that a lot of people who are woke will repeat the same type of slogans. It's like a mantra,
Yeah.
and it seems like it's like a ritual, as you said. And so I think that, yeah, if you're not worshiping God, I think inevitably you're going to be worshiping something, even if it's subtle. I think we all have a tendency to create sort of rituals out of nothing. But yeah, I've definitely seen that. Uh, and to be perfectly honest with you, I think it is absolutely beautiful that Christians want to worship God and want to please God, because you're putting him above anything else in this world. Whereas a lot of people, everything in this world comes first. The how many likes you get on social media is more important to some people, or yeah,
Mhm.
your reputation, or and none of that matters.
Yeah. You know that verse in the Bible? This is one of my favorite ones as a new Christian. The one where Paul is talking about all of his accomplishments, right? Back before he was a Christian, and in fact was persecuting Christians. And he said, all of these accomplishments. I'm paraphrasing because I'm not going to get it right, but all these accomplishments, he's like, they're dung, they're
Mm,
shit, they're
mm,
literal shit. None of that stuff matters. That stuff that I put stock in. And I'm kind of like you. When I started reading different parts of scripture, I'm like, huh, like that's something that makes sense to me on this gut level. It's like, yes, it's um it's things that just, I don't know, that just make sense.
mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me to describe that. I count them as dung. Thank you, Trinoculus P. Yeah, that's the verse. I count them as dung.
Lovely. Love it.
Yeah. So to go back to the political awakening first, in my case, the political awakening also came first. Um, what is it? I like to ask this question of everyone. What is it about you think that helped you see through woke ideology eventually? Is it your
Mm.
upbringing? Is it something about your personality or your psychology or experiences? Is there something you can point to and say
Um,
maybe that's part of it?
well, I think that I am someone that I love to listen to people. I like to hear people out. So I'm more of an observer than I am someone that's very reactionary. And when I was thinking something is definitely wrong with the woke left, I said, let me just observe. Let me just see what people are saying. Let me see how they're moving, what their behavior is. And then I said, let me also start researching and actually hearing the other side. So then I started going on YouTube rabbit holes and literally typing in Black people who don't support Black Lives Matter, because in my mind that was unheard of, or Black people that are Republican or Libertarian or whatever. And I think it was just my curiosity, and then also my desire to actually want to hear people. And then I think another chunk of it is the way that I was raised. I was never raised in a woke household. And if I think about it, I think in retrospect, a lot of the things that I've picked up came from social media, corporate media, high school, friends. I didn't learn any of this woke stuff when I was growing up in my mom's house. So that goes to tell me that this is more of like social engineering, just little by little, as opposed to me actually believing all of this stuff. Like even when I was on Twitch, there's actually a post on my Instagram. If you scroll back far enough, I'm admitting that I feel like I was becoming more of a social justice warrior. And that was after I started going on that platform, which is predominantly one way of thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like, I think about this. So there's a lot of people in woke who are sincere believers. I know this. I was a sincere believer. But there's also a lot of people who I think are in it, especially now, because it is culturally the belief system. It's what your social circles believe. It's what as you said, the corporate media is pushing. They're pushing in education. They're pushing it in politics now and entertainment. And so there's all these people who come to it, I think, just sort of because that's what's culturally in fashion. And now I've started realizing, oh, well, that's the same for any belief system. Like, to go back to Christianity for a second, it's like, well, Christianity was, I would say, culturally dominant in probably the 80s and the 90s, back when I formed my opinions about Christians. And if you think about it, how many of those people are sincere believers versus like, well, this is what your social circles do. And I think woke is functioning much in the same way. Like, you've got all these people on social media who kind of one-upping each other in terms of, well, I've got a black square. Well, I've got a black square and I've got the hashtags. And, it's like everyone kind of standing on the street corner, preaching so that they may be seen doing it,
Yep.
I don't know. That's not a question.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a great observation. Like, but you're right. I think a lot of these people that subscribe to these woke ideas don't even necessarily believe what they're talking about. Sure, some might, but I think that in my experience with, I got so many of these content creators that will literally go out of their way to make videos about me. And their arguments, like if you listen to what they're saying, it's slander after slander. It's not actually saying something that's new information or truth. It's just projection and slander. And in my opinion, if you truly believe something, you are going to take as much time as needed to formulate a coherent argument surrounding that thing. You're gonna actually work towards it. It's the same way that I look at entrepreneurship, because I quit my job like 5-6 years ago to just do content creation full time, and I was so I had the desire to be my own boss, so I would work as much overtime as necessary to pay for the equipment, and I would do whatever it was needed for me to actually achieve that goal, and I wouldn't complain about it because I had a goal in mind. And I think the same thing can be said about any of these social justice things that people support. If you have a goal to, for example, help bring the Black community out of poverty, you're going to do more than put up a black square. Or if you want to help fight racial injustice, you're going to do more in the community, drive yourself down there and actually do something at one of these centers instead of screaming on the internet. That's not doing anything.
Yeah. It sounds like have you ever heard Jordan Peterson, to bring him up again? Have you ever heard his lecture on tragedy versus evil, where he talks about Cain and Abel?
I'm
And
not sure if I did.
so he says that the Cain and Abel story, even if you don't believe in God, you look at it as an allegory for the best way to be in the world. He's like, it's a story about two different ways of being. And you've got Cain, who doesn't make the sacrifices that please God, who is entitled, arrogant, resentful, and, why not me? I'm owed all this kind of thing. And it leads him to ultimately that path of life leads you to murderous rage. And then you've got Abel, who makes sacrifices that are pleasing to God, is grateful, thankful, humble, and is blessed. And that's a different way. And so it sounds like even before you found God, you were behaving like Abel in your life. You were making sacrifices because you said, I had this goal. I'm going to work overtime. I know what I want. I've got my star there and I'm going for that.
Yeah.
That's really impressive to me.
Yeah, like I said, in some ways I was woke, in some ways I wasn't. I've always throughout my life just known how to persevere. I've known how to prioritize. I've known how to, in some cases, separate emotion. In other cases, I wasn't able to, but
Yeah.
it's yeah. I would say that that's a great analogy there. You just do the thing if it means something to you.
Yeah. That lecture, if you haven't heard it, it's an old one too. You can find it on YouTube probably still. I think it was from the 80s or 90s. He's since talked about that more, but that old one was really good. Okay. So now, how do you deal with the attacks? You mentioned people making slanderous videos. How do you as a human being absorb all this hate and then deal with it as an individual?
For a while, it did get to me. This was before finding God, and it drained me because I don't hate anyone. I don't have a single bone in my body that would cause me to hate someone. I may disagree. I may, say something that it might hurt your feelings, but I have you in my best interest. I'm not going to say something just to hurt someone's feelings or whatever. And I felt myself becoming a little bit resentful before I found God. I found myself starting to want to snap back at people and start going into this online drama with random people online. And now I just don't do it anymore. I just don't respond. Before I used to go look for the mean stuff. Like my brain just wanted to see what people were saying. And now I'm just like, if what people think about me is none of my business. It doesn't affect me. They can scream into the void. I'm not going to change my opinions. And I think that finding God has also taught me to lead with love. And so whenever I get this type of hate, like I said, I ignore it. If I have the opportunity to actually confront the person, I love you. I'll pray for you. I'm going to do it right now. I might, who knows? Maybe I'll do it in front of them one of these days and see how they react to it. And I think it's better to lead with love as opposed to leading with aggression or slander, which is what they do. And that doesn't change people. They might get someone to change their behavior because they're afraid, but I don't want someone to be afraid of me. I want someone to change what's internally because they actually believe it.
Yes. I love everything you're saying on the stream. I don't know what my favorite part is yet. You mentioned praying for people who hate you. What's your experience like with prayer?
Well, actually, my pastor actually had to tell me this because so my fiance and I were doing like marriage counseling at the church. And he was like, okay, we're going to open up this prayer, and Vanessa, you're going to do one, and then Saul, you're going to do one. And I felt awkward because at that point I had not prayed out loud. And I was like, my praying is kind of messy. It doesn't sound good. He was like, it doesn't have to be perfect, So I've gotten into the habit where when I'm praying, I'll literally say to God, there's probably a better way I can be saying this right now. So I apologize, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. But I'm trying.
That's
Yeah.
the best. I'm the same. It's like I'm still awkward with it, like the out loud prayers, it's okay. And you
Yeah.
just say that. I'm like, when I've talked to people, like sometimes people message me, and if I do see, like I try to go through and I do try to tackle that inbox once in a while. And
Hmm.
there's some people questioning, they have questions like, my mind is open to God. Like, what? I'm like, but praying's awkward. I'm like, it is for everyone. I think it's just do it. Just do it. And even
Yeah.
if I'm tired, like so my husband and I will pray out loud every night before we fall asleep. And they're usually, I try and remember everything I want to put in the prayer for the day. I think they're good. Even if you're not a believer, it's a good way to like take stock of the day so you don't lose days. It's like, here's what I failed at. I'm ask forgiveness for this thing, right? And here's what I'm grateful for today. And here's what I want to ask for my friend or this person who asked me to pray for them and all that. But one time, this is all a build up to my most ridiculous prayer. It was like one night I was so tired. It was like, dear God, we love you. We're tired. Good night.
I got
It's like
I can relate to that. I woke up one morning. It was really early and I had to start the day. So I get up in bed. My boyfriend's at the gym and I'm just like, "Dear Lord." And then I start falling asleep as I'm about to pray. I said, "Lord, I love you, but I'm going to pray in like an hour." All right. I need to wake up first.
yeah, it's fine. That's okay.
Yeah.
um, you said your pastor was counseling you. We did pre-marriage counseling as well at my church. My pastor's recently counseled me about praying for your enemies or for people who hate you, that kind of thing. And so my recent experience with prayer, like, is that it's pretty interesting. It sounds horrible to pray for someone you hate. And I mean like a real prayer, not like, please help that person stop being a dick. Like not
Hmm.
like that. That's not a real prayer. That's an attack on them in your prayer. That's not right. But
Hmm.
like a real loving prayer. It's horrible the first time you do it in my experience, but then the more I've done it, it's amazing. It actually kind of I think I get it now. It's like changing your heart. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like
Oh, yeah.
and it's weird because I'm still this again, why I call myself a new Christian. I'm still learning things about why do you do this? Why does the Bible say to do this?
Yeah.
And that part of it, I don't know. I don't think I'll ever stop learning all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
And even for, people watching this that are maybe non-believers, I think just doing that is very therapeutic for someone who has been on the receiving end of hate to not fall into the trap of holding grudges, and being able to show compassion for someone, and still want the best for them, which I think it's very difficult for a lot of people. There were times where I was like, I can never forgive my friends for doing all of this, and now I can. I legitimately can forgive them. And people have said some nasty things about me, but I whenever I have the time, I will pray for them that they, their hearts are softened, and they step away from social media. I pray that they go outside, experience, God's creation, because I think that's also another problem is people get sucked into technology and it just keeps them in this cycle of just like a heightened state of being emotional all the time. So there's never an opportunity for them to like decompress, self-reflect, and just be. They're always on the reactionary.
sorry, I had to mute myself with these puppies.
No
Um,
worries.
where do you see things headed? You're mentioning people are plugged in, they're online all the time. Do you think things are going to get worse in this country and culturally?
Yes. Yes, it's gonna get worse. I think it's gonna get worse, but it will get better. It's gonna be a long process, I think. Um, and yeah, I think that this country is gonna go through a lot of a healing process, but it's not gonna happen until things get really bad. And that's, I think, part of the reason I got very frustrated, last year, is because I was trying to avoid people getting hurt in the process of this without something actually affecting them personally for them to wake up. Like especially with like the mandates situations and stuff like that, and how people would be applauding, oh yeah, they should lose their job. It's like you say that until it affects you. But yeah, I think things will get better eventually.
I do too. I kind of it's sort of like that personal transformation of it has to get really dark before the light. I think
Hmm.
I'm with you though. It's when people ask you these days, like, what pill are you? I'm like, I guess I'm white pilled, but I was black pilled before it had to be black pilled first.
Oh yeah, I was really black pilled.
What advice do you have for parents who are raising kids in this day and age when we're saying things are going to get worse before they get better? Do people ever reach out to you about their kids maybe being pulled into some of this, like the woke ideology or what have you? Like, do you ever give advice to parents? Like, what would you tell somebody who's struggling with a young person who's turning to
Yeah.
woke?
So I go off of the template that my mom raised me on. I think a big problem with a lot of the wokeness now is it's being fed to young people by means of social media, smartphones. I talked about on stream how I'm actually downgrading to a dumb phone. Like, look at it, it's so tiny.
Nice.
And there's literally, you can call, you can text. That's pretty much it. And I think that parents need to, I recommend stop being your child's best friend and start being your parent. And if that means taking them off TikTok and Twitter and all these places, do it. Because kids are going to be able to survive. Social media wasn't around since the beginning of time. And I think a big problem with these apps is people are losing the ability to actually socialize. They just don't know how, because they're so used to that quick dopamine rush and instant gratification. So I think that that's the first thing, is get them off social media. And if you really want to give them that experience, I got 1 hour of internet a day, and then the internet would boot me off when I was a kid. So it was just in small doses, and I had to earn that privilege. I had to do good in school. I had to have good behavior. I had chores. I had other things to do aside from consuming stuff about social justice or whatever was online at that moment.
You had internet when you were in school?
Oh yeah, I was on AOL.
Well,
Yeah, remember
you
that?
have you seem to have gotten things figured out at a much younger age than I did. So
Yeah, thank
congratulations.
you.
We didn't even have, well, I take that back. We did have email. It was like brand new
Mm,
in 11th and 12th grade. But I remember my first cell phone. It was an emergency only phone when I went to college, and it was huge. And it's like, put
mm,
this in the glove compartment and never use it unless you have to. And that's what the phone was. It wasn't like what you're talking about, the smartphones today. It
yeah,
was just like emergency use calls only.
yeah.
Um, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm so grateful that you could hang out with me and talk about all this stuff. Uh, Two final questions for you in whatever order you want. How do you stay balanced given that your career, your job, you are online, you're on social media? I guess part of it is getting a dumb phone. How do you stay balanced? And then what is something that is bringing you joy right now?
Mm. So with me staying balanced, this has been a work in progress because, like I said, I've had to practice walking myself off that ledge and thinking that I have to take all of this burden and wake people up, and I just don't have to do that anymore. So instead of looking at, because for a while I resented content creation because what I'm doing right now on YouTube isn't what I initially signed up for. I just kind of fell into it. So now I'm at the point where I make content if I feel compelled to make a video about something. I'm not gonna make content just for the sake of making content, just for the sake of money or staying relevant. No, I'm gonna take my time, make something, and make sure that I feel joy in that process. And then as far as what's bringing me joy right now, actually, the church that I joined, they have a good model set up, and they're trying to also broadcast their sermons to the world, and they have this big studio, and I told them that I have a YouTube channel, and they were like, we have no idea what we're doing with YouTube. It's just crazy that you're here now. So again, this is God putting the right people at the right place, and
Yes.
they need help with their YouTube, and I'm gonna help them grow it. So I'm happy to sort of be a part of a collaborative effort towards something that I actually believe in.
That's awesome. What's the name of your church? Do you want to plug
Oh,
them?
Awakening Church.
Right on.
Yeah.
I was joking. Do you know comedian Chrissy Mayer?
Yes.
I was joking with her. I was on her stream a couple weeks ago at her night stream, and she was doing one of her sponsors is a cryptocurrency, and she had this like kind of sexy sounding music behind it, and she's like plugging the cryptocurrency. And I told her, I was like, my church recently said they might become a sponsor of my channel, which I was like, well, make sure you want to do that though, because I talked to, I'm not gonna make sure you know what you're getting into if you sponsor my channel, because I'll talk to anybody. And then I told Christy this, and she made me laugh so hard. They put the sexy sounding music on again, and we were just joking, like, how do you even advertise a church? Like, come to the church. She was like, do you have sins you need to confess?
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it was kind of hilarious. Okay, cool. I think, am I caught up on super chats, Pirate? Let me see. Now I'm having that anxiety that I'm going to miss one. If I missed one, yeah, if I missed one, guys. Oh, hey, Mike Harlow's here.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, Mikey.
Hey, Boo Boo. I miss you.
Give me just 1 second. Oh, there we go. The Front Porch Conservative. Hello. He says, Lady Gothix and Lady Keri, a couple of great dames. Look at Micah 6:8. I think you will find it explains what God wants from all of us.
I'm gonna write that down.
Me too. Thank you, sir. Nice hat.
Fabulous hat.
Has your sense of style changed at all with your transition?
A little, yes. In some ways, yes. We were talking about this today on stream, and they were asking, how is it going to affect your gothic aesthetic? And like, I like dressing up. I love weird clothing. But my everyday attire, I just want to be comfy, man. I just want to just be comfy. I don't want to wear all the crazy stuff. It's not realistic. And plus, I also don't want people putting me in the same camp, because that when you see someone with the spikes and the colored hair and the mohawks, you kind of assume they think a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it's changed a little bit.
It's good for being a Trojan horse, though.
That is true, and I have thought about this. I said maybe I can infiltrate a space to do some type of research study with this hair. I could do that.
Yeah, maybe get people to be more willing to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
One more from Eddie Brown. Thank you, Eddie. Says, Keri, I found you on Friday Night Tights, and now I'm really enjoying Deprogrammed. Gothix, keep killing it, and congratulations on your newfound faith and impending nuptials. Yeah,
hey,
congratulations.
Eddie. Thank you guys so much.
When are you getting married? Or can you say?
We don't know yet, but we're trying to do it as quick as possible. It's weird because at first we were like, we gotta beat the clock because of like the mask mandates in Rhode Island, and we know that a mysterious strain is gonna pop up in a few weeks. So we're like, do we race against the clock and try to do things as quick as possible, or do we just do something tiny and use that money we would have spent on a wedding and use it towards like buying a house? So
right. Yeah. Can I tell you guilty pleasure?
Go ahead.
Reality show. My housemate watches this and got me hooked on it. It's called Marriage or Mortgage. Have you heard of this?
No.
Oh gosh, it's terrible, but I can't stop watching. Every episode they have, the conceit of the show is these two women share an office together. It's entirely set up, but one's a mortgage broker and the other is a wedding planner. And so they bring in a new couple each episode, a couple who has managed to scrape together and save like $30,000, like a nest egg. And then over the course of the episode, they go and look at houses with the mortgage lady or the real estate agent, sorry. And then they kind of plan what their wedding would be with that 30 grand with the wedding lady. And then at the end, they decide if they're going to spend their 30K on a marriage or a mortgage. And it is infuriating sometimes when you're like, no, not you. You have 3 kids and you live in a tiny apartment, don't pick the marriage. Or I mean, do the marriage at your new house.
Yeah.
Why are you? Yeah.
I don't know if I could ever spend that much on a. That's a lot of money. I'm
lot.
looking at like less than $5,000. Like I can't justify it.
Oh, I can give you tips. Here's one. This sounds silly, but this is true. The grocery stores, at least in Texas, they will mark down the day-old cakes.
Okay, I like.
So it's like, let's just get a bunch of fun cakes and the cakes that people didn't pick up, and it was like, happy birthday, Marsha. Sure, we'll have that on the table. Like, who cares?
Okay.
But there's a tip if you need it.
Thank you.
Here's one more. Matthew Hammond says, has the woke ideology destroyed the left's ability to debate issues, so they have to shut down, cancel, ban people to maintain their homogenous groups?
I mean, I don't know too much about the left being able to debate. At least I've never been observant to that. From my experiences, they've never been able to debate. The people that tried coming at me for me being incorrect on stuff. I think that the shutdown and cancel culture that they've grown to love so much is detrimental to, number one, civil discourse, but number two, enclosing them in an echo chamber. So I saw this really fun skit a few weeks ago. I don't know if it was like PragerU or something like that, where they were talking about, they were doing a skit between a conservative and a leftist, and the leftist was like, "Get out of my space! I can't talk to you. You're spreading conspiracy theories." And then the conservative is like, "Maybe the people that told you that I'm spreading conspiracy theories are doing that because they don't want you speaking to me. Maybe they're the one that's manipulating you." And I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the Spider-Man meme. Everyone pointing fingers at each other.
Yes.
No, you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I think I'm truly caught up. Thank you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thank you to Gothix for spending your evening with us and telling your story again. And I wish you the best. I'm very excited for your wedding, whatever it is, however you do it. You can always come to Texas. We don't do masks. So
I love that.
Yeah. Why don't you tell people, if there's anyone here who's not familiar with you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Locals, gothix.locals.com, or YouTube, youtube.com/GothixTV.
Cool. And we have all of that below in the description of the video, so you guys can find it there. Thank you for hanging out. Tomorrow we're doing live Kerfefe break at noon Central Standard Time, and we're going to have Drunk 3PO, who was here tonight, and Hill versus Babyface as.
Nice.
So
very nice.
Tune in for that. We should have a lot of fun. Thank you guys.